And we will go live on Facebook. So just a second.
All right, welcome everyone. Good afternoon or good evening from Columbus, Ohio here, and everybody is from all parts of the world, it looks like, from Seattle to Romania, to Giurgiu in Romania. We are very excited to have a panel on Romanian women in film, and I am happy and excited to get to meet and talk to everyone and spend some time, at least an hour here together. My name is Alina Haliliuc. I am an academic. I study Romanian public discourse. I'm a rhetorician by training. That means I look at cultural discourse broadly understood to see how we are reimagining being Romanian in Romania and transnationally as well. So I appreciate the invitation to be here with you this evening. We are a few words about the film festival. This is the 8th edition. It's quite a tradition of the Romanian Film Festival in Seattle, which together with the Arizona Romanian Film Festival and the American Romanian Cultural Society in Detroit is bringing us this week 23 new film productions from Romania as well as Europe, which are showcasing the creative spirit and resilience of both young and more established directors, covering a wide range of genres from feature films to documentaries and shorts. And you can watch these films through online through the Northwest Film Forum, and the festival is hosted by the Northwest Film Forum on Inventive. And I want to start with just a little bit of short bios. I know they are not going to be full, and hopefully they're up to date about our participants to introduce each of them. And then we'll start talking with them. So I will begin with Oana Giurgiu, who is present at the festival with the documentary Occasional Spies. Hi, Oana. Espion de ocazie. She is a journalism and law graduate with an extensive experience as a producer of television programs, of music videos and events, as well as organizing the Transylvania International Film Festival. And she worked as a cinematographer on the documentary Doina and Nicolo from 1996 and all the way to Alia Dada in 2015, among others. The last one being a documentary about Jewish people in Romania and their several migrations to Israel that are presented in a self-proclaimed by Oana Dadaist style. The next participant I want to introduce is Ioana Mischie, who is present at the festival with the documentary Fragile. She is a Romanian-born transmedia artist, screenwriter, director, and a transmedia futurist, awarded for filmmaking, cinematic, virtual reality, and innovative concepts. Among other of her accomplishments, she is a Fulbright grantee at the USC School of Cinematic Arts. And among her short films, there are Cumulomnibus, that was nominated at the Gopo Awards in 2018, but she also writes participatory poems and has transmedia installations and web documentaries. Welcome, Ioana.
Thank you so much for the invitation. Well, welcome to you too.
And we have also Oana Tenter. Hi, Oana, whose short documentary, The Pastor's Women, is featured at this festival. Oana is a documentary maker and graduate student at UCSC. And she's the recipient also of a Fulbright scholarship, and her work has been exhibited at Open City Docs, as well as other avenues such as Scena, No, and her writing can be found also in The Guardian, The Evening Standard, and Dispatch. And we are still waiting, I believe. Yes, we are still waiting on our fourth participant, who is Ioana Flora, who is the actor of Fragile. She's a prolific Romanian actor who played in more than 20 films in the last 20 years, and maybe a lot of you are remembering her from Stuff and Dough in 2001, the film that opened the Romanian New Wave. And since then, she has been working with numerous other popular film directors, acting in TV series, and receiving 2 GoPo awards. So we are going to hopefully have her here as well. If not, we're going to just proceed with our 3 guests. And these short introductions are something that is available out there about you, but I want to hear a little bit more from you. How would you describe yourselves as artists, as women artists, and more importantly, or just as importantly for our women guests tonight, who are our viewers, we are so fortunate to have your work at the Romanian Film Festival and to follow your work and your careers. I wonder if you can, in your presentation, give us a little a compressed sense of how have you come to do what you're doing, especially for the younger women in the audience who may be thinking of how can I do what I'm seeing here women directors and writers and actors doing. And we could start, I'm looking at my screen and I see Oana Giurgiu, the first one. So Oana, would you mind starting us up?
Yeah, hi everybody. You are hearing me, yeah? Okay, great. Well, I don't know what I'm considering myself. All the time I like to present myself as a journalist, but it's something that I haven't been doing for a long time. So basically, filmmaking and documentary filmmaking for me is like a hobby. I'm doing mostly production, and I'm involved in feature films, in fiction actually, all the time as a producer. And from time to time, when I have time for me, I'm doing this hobby that I'm saying that I do documentaries, just because basically I miss my main profession. We say hello to Cristina Amaral, who is my high school colleague, and she's living now in Seattle. She's joining us. Yeah, so that's about how I see things, you know. So I'm following this profession basically, but I consider myself lucky to have the means to do this, you know. It's not about being, in my opinion, it's not about being a man or a woman. It's hard in this profession anyway, to finance the films, to finance the projects, to manage to say what you have to say. So yeah, I think I'm lucky, but I pay this luck with just by the fact that I'm doing a documentary at 5 years. So yeah.
Thank you for sharing that. And if we can go maybe around also the screen. The screen is a good way of organizing. Maybe Oana, would you share with us next, Oana Tenter?
Sure, of course. Hello everyone, on Facebook and on Zoom. And yes, my name is Oana Tenter, and I have to start off by saying that, you know, the people on this panel have really been an inspiration for me on my journey towards filmmaking, so ongoing journey towards filmmaking. So it's really an honor to be here, and thank you very much for the invitation, for the festival organizers for inviting me. And yes, you asked me how I would describe what I do right now. So right now I am in Santa Cruz in California, and I am here on a Fulbright scholarship from Romania, where I continue to study documentary and develop my documentary practice. And this is a good opportunity to thank Ioana Mischie again for, you know, the support and the tips ahead of my Fulbright interview. So thank you for that, Ioana. And in terms of how I got into documentary, it actually started pretty randomly with a lot of Latin language competitions, Olimpiade, the Romanians will know. It was a lot of, you know, national and then international Latin language competitions, which kind of offered me an opening to study in the UK after high school. And very soon enough, I realized that, you know, Latin language was not going to be my path forever. And I turned more towards anthropology and journalism. But at the same time in London, I was working all throughout my studies at a cinema. And I really, you know, spent all my days off in these cinemas in London. And I watched many films and really loved doing that. And Bertha Dock House is the first documentary only cinema in London, and was really inspiring for me to spend time there. And it just became clear to me that documentary would be a way to combine, you know, my interest in anthropology, social issues, art, journalism. And yeah, ever since I've been trying to find ways to pursue this art form and this way of life, I suppose. So yeah, thank you. Ioana, I give the mic to you.
Thank you so much for sharing this. Yeah, so my name is Ioana Mischie, and I grew up in a village which was very remote. And in that village, I fell in love with writing and with kind of archiving the concept that I was thinking of. I always try to imagine how does the world around me, how is it looking like? And I tried to transpose it into words at first. And then I kind of became interested in transforming these ideas into multiple formats, and film turned to be one of the crucial ones after high school. I fell in love with film and then with virtual reality and transmedia art. I think film is a holistic art form, and I kind of practice it because to me, it's the way I can enrich the human spirit in some ways, or at least this is what I hope to be doing by the end of my life. And I guess there are still many discoveries to be done and many good practices to kind of unfold in my journey. But right now, kind of the recipe I'm kind of juggling with is based on powerful concepts that I usually build my whole work around a meaningful concept. I usually play a lot with groundbreaking technologies, and also I try to kind of have a focus on social impact. And I believe in filmmaking with a form of social or societal influence around us. So this is what brought me closer to projects like Fragile, where we actually try to tackle the essence of womanhood in the 21st century. How can we define a more qualitative way of seeing womanhood in our current days? And this is just one of the topics that interests me, but there are many questions to be answered and to be explored.
Thank you, everyone. And actually, Ioana, your answer kind of brings me to one of the questions that I had for everyone, which is, how did you come to this story? And maybe you can say a little bit for those of us here who haven't yet seen your film, who are about to in the coming days. So just a short review. Fragile is bringing up a lot of stories by women that Ioana Flora is performing. Oana Tenter's documentary is about the family life of a Pentecostal priest, Roma priest, and Oana Giurgiu's documentary traces the spying activities post World War II of not just Romanian, but many European Jewish people who are already living in Israel. So how did you come to these stories? How did they come to you, if they came to you? And then maybe you can comment a little bit more broadly about how do you develop a story, right? What makes a story for you that then turns into an actual cultural product?
So thank you for the question, and it's very multi-layered, and it's like we have 100 answers to give to a question like this. I'll try to be brief. There are several aspects to it, but the Fragile story was initiated by Ioana Flora. I came on board as a director, which is pretty rare because I usually write and direct the works that I do. But I tried to kind of bring as much added value as I could in the visuals, in the audio approach, and in the holistic social approach of the project as well. I'm personally very invested into this topic because my mother was a huge rights activist for the rights of women in my region. So I always kind of click with projects that tackle the rights of women, or how can we actually achieve a form of collective consciousness of womanhood in our current times. And to me, Fragile is, although perhaps at first it might seem a bit of a darker project because it unfolds a lot of vulnerable stories collected from marginalized women, to me, it's actually a project about the active process of healing and about how can we achieve collective healing as a community of women or as a community of humans in general. So I felt very much attracted to this path at first, and this is how we kind of put all of our forces into bringing it to life. I'll pass the mic to the next speaker.
Thank you, Ioana. Oana or Oana, who may want to jump on this. And I see, meanwhile, Ioana Flora has joined us. Welcome, Ioana. It's great to have you here.
Thank you. Thank you for inviting me. I'm so sorry for being late.
No worries. It's great to have you. And we were talking about just how have this story come to you, or you came to them. So take a moment to be here. You don't have to jump in right away. But since you brought Fragile to Ioana, I wonder if at some point you can comment a little bit more on that as well.
Yeah, I think Ioana was speaking. Exactly when I connected. Yes, Ioana was speaking about the project. So I don't know exactly what she said already. But yes, basically it was the main core team that was made out of Ioana Mischie and Roxandra Pop and me, and that was in the main idea. The basic idea was actually telling the stories of women who don't have the courage to tell them and to go publicly with them, and because of shame or fear even. And we said that it would be a great idea to mirror their stories, to be an interface in the public eye. And this way the story can be told and they can be protected. And that was the idea, that actually everybody embraced it in a way or another. So we got to have a huge team for us, yes, team of around 25 people who joined us in this wonderful story that we made. I don't know if you have specific questions, I will gladly answer.
Yeah, so I wonder, how did you find the women who would tell this, right?
Well, one of the ideas actually was, what about call to action? What are we going to do with those stories? How are we going to help those women or the women in similar situations? So the great idea that Ruxandra had actually was to partnership with NGOs that take care of different issues of those women. And those NGOs, our partners, provided us the stories. So that's how we got Ruxandra. Ruxandra kept the connection between NGOs and those women. And that's how we got to meet them face to face or via Zoom, or it was a pandemic situation. So we managed the best way we could. And that's how we got to know those women.
Right.
And the NGOs are listed on our website, fragile.live, and they are our partners in this. And whoever, I don't know, whoever considers that has the same story can be helped, because on that, I don't know if Ioana said, on our platform we have get help, offer support. So if there are other women who see those stories and say, okay, I have a similar story, we are there to listen and to make another story out of it, another, I mean, the story is going on. And if you want to help, you can donate to those NGOs that take care of those women.
Thank you for sharing that. And I think we're sharing that also in the chat for our viewers here. I will come back to that platform and to the way you have chosen to share your production. I would like to hear more also from Oana Tenter and Oana Giurgiu about how they have come to their projects.
Sure, I can be the first, Oana. And yes, how I came to my story, I was going to work with a band called Londonesi, the London Boys in London. And I was going to focus on how music can capture the immigrant experience. But then my brother, who's watching right now, so hello, thank you again. My brother sent me a reportage, Digi24 TV news reportage on how many Roma musicians are turning to the Pentecostal faith, and how they keep the sort of the rhythm of their music, but change the lyrics to lyrics that no longer focus on, like, let's say, hedonism, but focus on more of a Puritan way of life. So I found that very fascinating, and I was gonna try to reach out and do a longer form story on this. And I reached out on Facebook actually to the pastor, and he was happy to collaborate with me and work on a story about this. But when I got there, I found myself spending a lot of time with the pastor's wife, Sandra, and I sort of just like fell in love with her aura and her presence and her just commitment to just support everyone around her. She's basically like the psychologist of everyone in that village. And yeah, I was always filming her. And then they also have 6 daughters who I was hanging out with a lot. We shared the room and got close. And the film ended up being an ode to, these younger women, and then Sandra, the pastor's wife as well, touching upon like the issues that the women in this community are dealing with. So that's kind of how it came to life.
Thanks, Oana.
If I have to link it somehow to the story of my film, so then it's something totally different. It's a story that it's a throwback back in the war in the year 44. So the story is about, I always pitch it very simple, like it's Inglourious Basterds for real. Because basically the British intelligence recruited some normal people, some young guys that were immigrating from Eastern Europe to Palestine back then, and try to train them on briefly in a few months to be sent back in their countries of origin in Eastern Europe, which was back then under German occupation. And to link it somehow, it's a story of 3 women actually among those men that dare to embark in such an adventure. And yeah, I think it's a film about courage and dealing with a situation that it's so far away from us, but still it can happen in any minute. I like very much I like very much history, and I like to, as I said before, I'm a journalist, so I like to make investigations. So this is actually an investigation about those times, and it's really interesting how you can dig in personal life and link it to historical facts and historical events that took place back then. And then out of the sudden, you have a clear view of those events, which are so far away. For me, it was an interesting journey, and I hope it will be the same for the audience. It's not only the story of Romania, it's the story of Middle East, Eastern Europe, US, because basically what those people were doing, they were trying to save the prisoners of war, the American prisoners of war mainly, because they were the pilots that were lost in battles. It's a more narrative story than a philosophical one or a social fact.
Very much so, and it's interesting that we're coming back to your many of your identification as a journalist, or your passion for journalism in choosing these stories to tell, and also your passion for or your commitment to social and political issues. And I would like to hear a little bit more. How much is that part of your broader work, or whether this is a kind of commitment that has emerged more recently, or whether that's the kind of commitment that you've always had, the commitment to social issues and to kind of giving voice to the voices that haven't been heard as much in your work.
Can I continue? Because
that'll be great. Yeah.
Okay, because it's easier for me to say. I think the other colleagues that are the other filmmakers here that are doing are following the stories from our times. For me, what's important to try to. I think I have a little bit more freedom for things that happen 70 years or 80 years ago. I think it's easier to follow those stories and to be more sincere about it. And even if it's not comfortable, it's not comfortable. I feel it's not comfortable for none of the countries involved in. So they are all dealing with political story, because those people basically are used by each and everybody. And this is what's happening to us in even now. This is what's happening all the time. Only we have, I think the overview is better. I mean, it's a more correct way to approach things, you know, more easy way to approach things when you are so far away from the events. But then to follow the things today, it's like, I would say, more courageous. So I just praise those guys while doing this.
Anybody else like to tackle this question of just the overall commitment to social issues, whether that's recent, whether that's a characteristic of your work, Ioana?
So I guess I could contribute with a very quick answer. In some ways, I feel it's very hard for me to separate art from social layers. And I believe, or my dream would be to live in a society where art and art forms are in our immediate surrounding world, and poverty and war are in museums. And perhaps we only visit them when we want to see how primitive humankind was in the past, but our present day is art driven and creativity driven. This is my hope for the future. And in general, my artworks are very future driven. Fragile is in some ways an exception, perhaps, because it's very much contemporary driven. We wanted to archive the stories of real women in real Romania. And we wanted to preserve their pain, but also to preserve their power. And we feel by doing this, we can generate a more meaningful future for themselves, but also for other women, for young, children that will grow in this society. For example, I made a project called Government of Children. We invited 100 children and invited them to design the next century of the country. And I feel through art forms and through this kind of processes, we can actually revolutionize not only art, but also society. Perhaps this is just me being an optimist, and a lot of people sometimes call me an excessive optimist. But I feel this is the power we have in our hands as artists, and all we can do is to practice it to the maximum of its capabilities. And sometimes actually artists can be exponentially more powerful than politicians. And I feel, especially in our current times, in a pandemic time, art can save ourselves more than we think it can.
I'm happy to go next if needed. Yeah, so I definitely feel social responsibility in my life, my actions, how I carry myself in the world, I suppose. But yeah, in my work, especially working with real people. And in this particular film, I try to highlight Roma issues. And I do think it's very important for Romanians to acknowledge the systematic racism that is still very present in Romania towards Roma people. But as an outsider to the Roma community, I would definitely not call myself a representative in any way. And there's amazing Roma voices doing very important work in terms of social responsibility across my other work. The film that I made before was about Oana Flora, an older Romanian woman who was living in a decaying mansion with a lot of cats and dogs and all sorts of animals. And she was an unofficial tenant who risked eviction. And then the film that I'm working on now, it's about conservative Romanians in the US. So many of them fled as political refugees from Romania and now turned to the far right to the US. And I guess, you could call these films socially engaged, but even if it's in very, very different ways. That's how I look at them. Thank you.
Okay, I could also answer now for myself. I want to say that Fragile changed me a lot. Actually, first of all, it changed me. And I don't know how much it changed the life of the women. We were telling the story to the people. But I think I clearly felt that it created a huge community of, first of all, women around it. And that somehow everybody wanted to talk more about what's going on with each person. And I when I was just acting and hiding behind a character and telling other people's stories, but fictive characters, I didn't feel so much plenitude and joy as I felt when I made Fragile, because I saw real people, and I felt that, as I said, huge community that was created around it. And me, myself, I started being much more clear and much more courageous in standing by my opinions as a woman, because I started feeling that so many voices were silenced. And in Romania, I think this is the beginning of women saying and telling their stories and standing by their points and opinions and rights and dignity and everything. I don't know. I mean, everything happened during that process of working for other women and helping other women. I helped myself in a way or another, but not only myself. I just felt that a lot of women connected to me in a way or another, or to us, to our project, and it's starting blooming. And I really feel very I feel overwhelmed by it. I'm very glad that this thing is happening, and women voices in arts are much more visible in a way or another in the last year. Like women filmmakers like Alina Grigore and uh, uh, her Blue Moon project film, and I don't know, and women artists starting having much more courage to express themselves. This is a very good point where we are. I feel it like that.
And that's thank you for that, Ioana. And is it right that this project started during COVID?
Yes. Actually, it's a very nice story that Roxandra is the mother. I don't know how would I call her, because she told me like, okay, Ioana, you're an actress, but you're not just an actress. You're more than that. And I was like, like, what am I more than that? I'm not an actress anymore. Even like it was COVID situation. I was really in a very bad moment. And then we started working together, and Roxandra kept feeding me with different books, articles, and she said, "You stand by some social cause for sure." And what was that cause? And I said, "Yeah, I wanna talk about women." And how do you want to talk about women? And we were in a park in Chismigiu Park. It was a lovely afternoon, and I said, "I want to be their mirror. How? I want to tell their stories. How?" And that's how it started, actually. So I'm so grateful to Roxandra that actually she put me on another way of not just being an actress, but representing some causes and believing in some causes and doing something in artistic way throughout artistic projects for society, to be socially involved. That's my first step. Fragile is my first step of being socially involved in society.
Well, let's develop a little bit, because I see the chat firing up with questions from the audience, and some of those overlap with mine as well. So I don't want to monopolize. I want to move to theirs, especially because the discussion is going there, namely how your socially engaged artistic work has come up, but also how does it evolve? Marie-Louise Paulesque is asking, what are those relationships like as they are evolving for you? Maybe relationships with your interviewees, Oana Giurgiu, or maybe the relationship with the family, Oana Tenter, and how they see you, and how you have continued that relationship at all. And Ioana Flora has started talking about her personal change in finding this community or creating this community. And I wonder, where is Fragile gonna go, or how can we think of, or how do you think of this ongoingness that is coming out of your work?
Okay, I'll start. First of all, when I started this film and when I said that I'm a journalist, I imagined that I can do the film only with the descendants of my characters. My characters doesn't live, are not living anymore, so basically I had to find a way. So I interviewed the descendants, mainly the children, but I was going nowhere because my spies, they were really spies until the end of their life. So basically, they were not sharing almost anything with their offspring. So I was going nowhere. I realized I'm going nowhere. And this is a very delicate moment for a filmmaker when you make interviews and you realize that it's just garbage. And okay, I didn't realize, I mean, I knew from the beginning that they are not valuable, but anyway, I mean, they were very sincere with me, they were very proactive, but unfortunately I was going nowhere because they knew nothing. So I made all those interviews with them, and then I said, okay, but apparently the I mean, all the information I had about my characters were so powerful and so strong. I had to find a way to tell these stories in another way, and that was a tricky moment. And it took me a few years to find an aesthetic way of doing this film because I'm not a film director. I don't consider myself a fiction film director because I'm not. And I didn't know how to do it. And I realized I have to do some reenactments and work with actors, which is something I don't know. And then all the reenacted films I've seen, I think they are really bad. So I didn't want to do something like that. And yeah, I was going through everything, like animation. I was imagining many ways of telling the story. And in the end, I found this way, just to reenact, to make reenactments, but not filmed, but photographed. And I was working with a photographer, and this is how we were doing. And he was really helping me to help the actors to try to put them in the situation. Anyway, it was very funny because they were not having the text either, and I realized they cannot they cannot make improvisation just like that. So at the point, I realized I have to help them with some text, like a real script. And yeah, this was. But anyway, it was very funny for the actors to see the film because they had no idea what they were acting actually in. Only when they saw the whole film, they realized what is it about, and it was really an experience. But they were great, and I had a great, and I think the it was a great way of telling the story also through this visual style, and all the work with the set designer and the costume designer. Everything was really important, and in small details you tell the big things. I don't know, the great events.
Yeah, thanks for talking about it, because I think a lot of the viewers are wondering about those reenactments, and to hear from you that, oh, they came out of necessity, and you can kind of see your imagination of thinking first about animation, right? It's like it feels like something between stop motion, right, animation and the reenactment. Let's come to the contemporary documentaries where those relationships are probably still part of your lives. Can you say more about that? Oana and Ioana.
Sure, I can go first so that they have the continuity of their film. Yeah, so for me, I lived with the family that I filmed with. So I lived with them for around 2 months, and it was this dual process of wanting to film everything and then also wanting to make myself useful around the house, help with the dishes. And so it was always jumping on and off in between these processes. And yes, what was really important for me was to be considerate and respectful during the production process of, like, you know, holding a camera in someone's face for 24 hours a day for 2 months to do an observational documentary is not very pleasant for the people involved. So I was trying to be considerate, and I was, you know, I was trying to look at it and to build a collaboration rather than, you know, to impose my own worldview. So it was important to be very patient with the process and the process of finding out how I'm going to put it all together, and to listen. And then it was equally important for me to create a long-term relationship with the people there, the people in the village. So yeah, compensate them if the film was being compensated as well. And then maybe connecting them with resources that I happen to know of, and maybe they were in search of So, kids who weren't or still don't go to school because of access issues, and then people who are trying to get IDs sorted out because they don't have documentation. And yeah, Romania Foundation and Innocenzi Foundation have been helpful, very helpful with that. And yeah, this is very much work in progress. I mean, the project started in 2019 and the pandemic has slowed down even more these processes around the production, not regarding the film itself. So yeah, that's the story behind the film.
And remind me if I'm wrong, Oana, you're an anthropologist as well, or your work in anthropology for?
I definitely wouldn't call myself an anthropologist. I've read some anthropology books, but that's the extent of, yeah. I suppose in documentary, anthropology plays a big role, inevitably. So yes.
Okay. I'll pause there then.
I see a nice question. I see a nice question from Irina, who is asking me if I'm worried if I take a stand or of whatever issue. Yes, can I maybe, if I'm risking myself, am I ready to face the challenges, maybe pay a price for my convictions if that happens? No, not at all. I've just started me so free. Actually, I'm finally free after 20 years, 20 something years being in this craft. I'm not worried because I'm really free to speak my mind and to support any causes I want and to stand by those causes of other women. Really. So I don't know. I really made myself free with this project. So no,
Ioana, do you want to expand a bit on this process of actually working with the women? Because I think it was really meaningful.
I wanted to say that also. It was a lot of consideration for those women. Sometimes you had to be tough, sometimes not tough with them, but ask uncomfortable questions. Sometimes you had to be soft and it's a work of a psychologist when you speak with women who are, I don't know, human trafficking, for example. It was one of the stories was about human trafficking and all those experiences. And I kind of pushed a bit. I felt where I can go. Anyway, all those women wanted to tell their stories. So that's the starting point. If they don't want to tell their story, you will never get a story. So those women actually were not in the phase of being there, but they have been saved from their painful points and went further and in a way became strong by that experience. But we've met them a couple of times, and it was a very strong impression that I had on all the stories. It's so heavy to keep it with you, psychologically speaking and emotionally speaking. And sometimes I've been asked if I can do that, if I can take all those stories. And I cried a lot while I was rehearsing. And even with Ioana, we rehearsed a lot before shooting because I was listening and I was watching them for hours just to catch their way of speaking, their particular gestures, to make them so different than not to forget completely about myself and to make them as they are. So many of them were actually, their reaction was when they saw themselves, when they saw me reenacting them or whatever, they said that they felt that they were looking at themselves. And that was for me, not only as an actor, but my responsibility as a human towards them was fulfilled. Because we didn't lie at all. We didn't add any full stop, any word of beside what they said. That was our respect towards them. And they saw first, before we were shooting their stories, they saw our monologue. So they said, okay, they gave their okay for that. And then they saw the movies and they gave their okay for that. And then it was put on the platform. So we respected their, I don't know, their privacy, and we didn't show more than they wanted to show, and we didn't add anything just in order to be more dramatic or more impressive or more emotional. We just kept the story, but we, of course, when we did the script, actually, we wanted to have the peak, and we made the monologues. I was writing the monologues, and Ruxandra was editing them. We were constructing the story. We were building the story in a way that it will be like in theater. It has to be a peak and start and peak, and then the solution and everything. It has to have something. That's our creation out of those 2 or 3 or 4 hours of discussions of 20 pages, 20 and something pages. We had to make only 2 pages to be a script out of maximum 10 minutes.
Yeah, I appreciate that sense in the process. So talking to them and recording them for many hours, and out of that constructing based on the narrative structure that you are used to as actors and directors, they're a smaller story out of their story that then they saw and had input in terms of the final product in a way, right? So yeah, thank you for that. We've already started taking questions from our viewers, and then we've done that by me or us reading them. So I want to leave a few minutes for just hearing their voices. If some of us here would like to share some of your questions or comments by speaking up, that would be great.
First of all, I'd like to salute all of you and to thank you all for being here at this panel. It's quite powerful for all of us to hear stories of women filmmakers, as well as their interest and their activism, truly. I think each of you, in your own particular way, in your style, in your craft, are an activist, because for me, filmmaking, as you understand it and as you presented us with your projects, speaks more than any journalistic style, Oana. So I'm very happy that you abandoned journalism. I just read a book on this about another journalist, a Croatian journalist who became a novelist, actually. And she said, I was fed up with the restrictions and the limitations of the journalistic style, and the fact that everybody checked on all the little details and facts. While if you are an artist, you have a much larger spectrum of means of communicating real events. So you are communicating real events in a framework of a storytelling, and of course, in the films that you are making. And my question is to all of you, if you watched your audience reacting to your work, to these wonderful films, and what was that? What's the reward that you get out of looking at your audience in a way, not audience looking at you, reversing the communication lane? Thank you all.
Thank you. I guess I could share a thought on this. So on one hand, I would say, a lot of people think directors are the ones portraying a film, or actors or screenwriters. But I actually start to believe more and more that spectators are the ones that are looking at a film and actually making it through their way of looking at it. And what I discovered through Fragile is that, yes, we made a film, but in the exact same measure, we made an educational project. in the exact same measure we made a social project, in the exact same measure we made perhaps research project, because we dived into 10 different typologies of women from across the country. So I think film is just so rich, and it's such a rich grammar to explore, and we shouldn't limit it to an art form even. It's just so much wider if we know how to treat it and how to borrow it further. So yeah, this would be my very short thought on this.
I would add maybe to what Ioana wonderfully said, actually, and to what Ilana said also, that I think arts can bring more than statistics, emotions. And that is the main issue, that is the main characteristic of art. So if it can create emotion in the audience, that means that it can help change their way of thinking, way of feeling. It can really change by that emotion that it gives to the public. And that's why maybe that makes a difference of just reading about a kind of a story that we made or hearing about it. When you see it and when you feel that emotion, then it cannot be that you're, I mean, I cannot imagine that it cannot make a click in your head, in your actually not in your head, but in your heart, and make a change, maybe help making a change.
And just to make it clear, so that no one imagines we made a Hollywoodian blockbuster, our film was made with a really tiny budget and in a very limited time frame. And I think this is even more valuable. So the power of a film doesn't reside in the money it has on board or in the perhaps super generous timeline you have, but simply in the idea and I don't know, yeah, energy you invest into it.
Actually, we filmed those 10 stories in 2 days, if you can imagine that. So
yeah, we were constrained to do so, and it seemed impossible. Like probably any other film crew would have said no from the beginning, because it was like almost mission impossible, even for us. And we were a team of exclusively made of women on set, and we kind of tried to make it work. And when we did made it work, I don't know, it felt super empowering for me as well. Like Ioana said, this wasn't an easy film. It was very painful for me to go through the stories of the women. I actually suffered a lot while doing this project. And this is also interesting, you know, how are perhaps artists impacted by the subjects they tackle. But at the end of the day, we also healed ourselves, I guess. And we learned a lot from this. So yeah, I think it's more than just an artwork. It's a life stage that we have been through. And it matured us in some ways.
Yeah, I definitely agree with the thought that, you know, film can create emotion a lot more than other art forms, and it can, or at least more than journalism, and that can lead to empathy, and, you know, that can lead to change, to positive change in the world. So yeah, I definitely agree with what has been said, and I appreciate the other filmmakers sharing more about their process. I think for me, seeing, you know, the audience react to the film and react positively to my main character, and sort of like commenting on Zandra's warmth, and that was very gratifying, because that meant that in my mediation, in my choice of lenses and zooms, I didn't ruin that. So that was what I found gratifying. So yes.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Well, a part of the emotions that you feel in the audience. I mean, the first time I showed the film, there were like 700 people in the, you know, in an open space, basically, because it was at the Transylvania Film Festival and it was in an open air cinema. And you know, you are overwhelmed by those emotions. But on the other hand, all these people, depending on where you show it, it's either in Romania or in another country. I mean, they have different approaches of the story and of the film, and it's really touching. I haven't shown the film that much yet because it was only in Romania, and I had some screenings in Hungary. And for instance, the facts that are depicted from the wartime in Hungary, they are not very comfortable, that's for sure. So I remember that the audience that stayed in for the Q&A, and they were very touched, and we were discussing this thing that we have to deal with our own history and try to ingest it somehow. And I keep saying that we shouldn't do the same mistakes, but unfortunately we keep doing the same mistakes. When I released my first film, which was telling the story of the emigration of the Jews from Romania to Israel, and I deliberately took only this way of emigration towards Middle East. It was in the same time when the Middle East was starting to emigrate to Europe, you know, from Syria, and so yeah, it's never ending. It's the same, and we learn nothing, unfortunately.
Thank you, everyone. And Otilia is making us aware that some of these discussions will actually follow on other of the festival panels that we'll have. We can get a reminder from chat about one with Alina Sherban tomorrow, and another coming up on Jewish history. We don't have time really for one more question, but if there is a quick one that anybody wants to jump on, maybe we'll take just one last one before we say goodbye.
Can I ask a quick question? May I jump in? So firstly, thank you all very much for the conversation. I find it really fascinating. So as a non-member of the Romanian diaspora, but just an interested member, I'd like to know how the panel feel that they've kind of brought their Romanian identity to their films, whether they have or not, whether they think that's something which they inevitably bring to their films. I think especially with regards to Oana Tenter in a kind of documentary perspective, but also to Ioana Flora from like an acting perspective. I wonder whether you feel like you bring your own Romanian identity to what you do.
Yeah, actually, I have two identities. I was born in Serbia, and I was born and raised in Serbia, and I came to Romania when I was 18. So I have two mother tongues and motherships. No, I that's a very interesting question. I don't know if there are so many differences between different nations. I couldn't answer that about Romanian identity. Maybe we have a kind of specific way of processing our emotions. That could be possible, actually. But I think I'm just, when I'm acting and even in Fragile, I'm just talking about people's souls. And not only about people's souls, but different backgrounds, social, cultural backgrounds, and I'm studying them. I'm really studying them. I'm really like a little scientist when I'm working on a role, on a character. I'm really looking from all kind of things around that character that I could express. So I'm more building it like in a professional way. So it's not specifically Romania or not, or Serbian or whatever. It's just a human being with something specific. I always am looking for something specific in each character I'm playing. and not in general, but specific. That's my main goal when I'm acting.
If I could add on that, just because it's connected to Fragile, I would say that, yes, we started a project in Romania with Romanian women, but unfortunately the topics we tackled are universal enough. And the core idea is that, or what I found as a core idea is, quoting one of my filmmaking friends, is you sometimes need to be broken in order to see what you're made of. And I feel this journey applies to all of us, regardless of the country. And I personally feel very proud of my Romanian identity, but in the same time, I don't necessarily want to create films only for the Romanian audiences. I think films are having no boundaries and should travel worldwide, and we shouldn't have borders when filmmaking. So this is my hope for the future of filmmaking, to be more, well, global, if I could put it like this, like local and global in the same time, and to find distribution worldwide. The paradox is, for Fragile, everything is free. You can find it online. It's very easy to access the project for anyone in the world, but still there are so many barriers in the countries that don't promote European cinema, that people don't reach the project so often. So yeah, I wanted to highlight this because I think it's something we can overcome together in defining the future of film industry.
I will quickly say that for sure in what I'm doing, there is a lot of Romanian poured in. So yeah, and I really like the way we are built up, even if we have many, well, I think we are some funny guys, you know, but you know, my characters were, even if they were not Romanian, all of them, but they were also the same. I mean, they were caught in dramatic situations, but they just keep their humor, and I think I managed to portray them as they were. And it was fabulous, the fact that my actors are not only looking alike the real characters, but I strongly think that they are very much alike the real persons they are reenacting. And yeah, I think what we do is basically to share ourselves and share what our roots, basically. And this is the most important thing for me, is to praise the diversity.
And I would add just a short thing, and stand by the vulnerables, the vulnerable people. That's what I feel, wherever they come from.
Well, thank you everyone for for that ending. I thought that was a great way to end, with the question and a reminder of how your work and your films from and about minoritized parts of Romania bring this more multiple view of Romanianness as your work is coming across borders. Let's pause here for tonight so that we are slightly close to our deadline. Thank you, participants, and thank you all participants, but especially our guests, for this panel tonight. We are so eager to watch your work. If you haven't yet seen the films, go watch Occasional Spies, Fragile, and The Pastor's Women. Still available for a few days during the festival. And we are going to look forward to seeing more of your work in the future and to follow your trajectories and your stories. Thank you so much for being here with us.
Thank you very much for everything.
Thank you.
It was really a lovely conversation, and I hope we will take it further somehow. I don't know how, but yeah, let's find ways. Thank you.
They will come. Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. We love you so much.
And
Keep
it
it
was
up.
great to see you, even like that. It's fine.
I know we miss you. We hope we'll be able to see you in person next year. Thank you, everyone. All the new friends. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, everyone.
Thank you. Have a good night in Romania.
It was great seeing everybody.
Have a great day.
Bye.
Bye, everyone. Thanks for the
Bye.
conversation. Thank you. Bye, everyone.
Bye.